Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Sunday video. Sunday videos will be about a variety of different subjects, although I must admit that many will be about the local churchyards and cemeteries of the North East and will be recorded on location where possible, but they may also include some other of the shorter crime stories or the unsolved cases. However, this one is about St Peter's Church in Chillingham, which we last visited in 2022, and it also includes the rather amazing tomb of Sir Ralph Grey and his wife Elizabeth, which can be found inside the church itself. I hope you will enjoy it and find it interesting. But before we begin, can I just say, if you do enjoy this video, then please give it a thumbs up, and if you are new here or haven't already done so, then do please consider subscribing to the channel to help support the content we create. Thank you. And I would just like to add that I do record these live, so I do sometimes make mistakes, which I always try to rectify. So I do hope this does not spoil your enjoyment of the video. When we visited St Peter's Church in 2022, it was not long after the bad storm which had happened in the winter of 2021, and there were still quite a few uprooted trees visible in the churchyard and the surrounding area, and I believe there had also been some damage to the church roof, but hopefully that has long since been repaired. However, the day we visited was a lovely sunny day in June, and the church and all around it really did look beautiful. St Peter's Church, I must admit, was not one I had really known about prior to our visit, but after reading a local news article about it, I felt that it was somewhere that I really needed to go and look at, and it really was worth the long drive to get there. There has been a church in Chillingham since the 12th century, but, of course, it has had many alterations over the years. It does still retain some of its Norman stonework. However, I didn't actually photograph any of the old stonework, as at the time I wasn't really aware of it. The churchyard itself is quite small, but it is filled with many interesting gravestones, and I find these to often be a fascinating glimpse into the past lives of those who once lived and worked in the area hundreds of years ago. One lovely stone is the one you can see on screen at the moment. The words are probably not too clear for you to be able to read them, but the inscription is as follows: "My friends, go home and cease from tears. I must lie here till Christ appears." Unfortunately, I don't appear to have taken a photo of the other side of the headstone, so I'm unable to say who the person is that is buried there. Another old headstone reads, "Here lieth the body of Robert Jobson of Hebburn, who died the 4th of August in the year 1730. Unfortunately, I can't quite make out what the last bit of the inscription says, though I do think it mentions his age as being 64. It did make me wonder what Robert was doing in Chillingham, many miles away from his home, and when I did try to do some research on Robert, all I could find was someone who had lived in the Chillingham area since birth, so it most certainly is a curious headstone inscription. If old headstones are something that you have an interest in, then this is certainly a churchyard worth a visit, and as you can see, it is also beautifully taken care of, so it's nice to walk around. However, I do believe the access is a little hilly and that there are quite a few steps, so it's probably not suitable for everyone. It is also very close to Chillingham Castle, which is open to visitors from the end of March until early November most years, and is reputed to be Britain's most haunted historic castle. So if you are interested in castles and ghost stories, then this castle is probably well worth a visit, and it is somewhere that I really must visit myself in the near future. However, moving back now to St Peter's Church, once inside, the church feels a lot more spacious than the outside suggests, and it does feel very cool and tranquil inside. We were the only ones there at the time, but I believe this is a church that does get many visitors from all over the UK, judging by some of the entries in the visitor's book at the time we were there. On entering the South Chapel, it is then that you see the most amazing tomb of Sir Ralph Grey and his wife Elizabeth. It really is a stunning tomb, and not at all what we would expect to find in such a tiny little country church, and it almost fills the room, as you can see from the photo on screen at the moment. It's said to date from the 15th century, and the tomb is still in very good condition, with obviously the obvious expected age-related wear, but clearly being inside has saved it from really bad damage from the elements, which would have no doubt eroded some of the beautiful carvings on the side and front of the tomb. And there are many different carvings of figures all around the sides and front of the tomb. Sadly, I don't know what any of them signify, but I know that some may have a meaning, either a personal meaning to the family or a religious meaning, although I have to add here that sometimes they didn't mean anything at all. They were simply just the decorative carvings that were placed around the tombs, which was quite common at the time. Two of the carvings that I did photograph, which you can see in a little more detail, are this one, which appears to be a man wearing a crown and robes with a sword at his side, and this carving is on its own at one corner of the front of the tomb. And the other, which is also on one of the corners of the tomb, is another man in robes with something in his hand. However, the stone is a little worn, so it's hard to make out what he is actually holding. And I did wonder if these two did have a significant meaning, with them being alone on the front corners of the tomb. So if you have any thoughts on this, please do let me know in the comments below. The other carvings, as you can see from this photo, are all around the sides and the front of the tomb. And each carving is different, and although it's hard to make any of them out clearly on this photograph, I think I can see one which appears to be a bishop. However, he seems to be holding someone's head in his hand, which really does make me wonder what that might mean. I do believe that Denis, the patron saint of France, was often depicted with his own head in his hands. St. Denis was apparently beheaded in France in 280. However, this statue still has his own head as well as the one in his hand. So again, if anyone knows anything about this, then do please let me know in the comments below. Moving on now to the two figures resting on top of the tomb. These are a fantastic example of the workmanship of the 15th century. Their faces are clear and well carved. This one is of Sir Ralph, and it shows the great detail of his hair and moustache, and the features such as his ears and eyes are also very clear. His hair does make me think of the style you often see in old pictures of monks, and also kind of reminds me of the basin cut hairstyles some of my friends had when I was a kid. Although there is some colour to the effigy, his hair and part of the clothing on his body, it is mostly plain. And although I didn't photograph the entire body close up, you can see some of the great detail in his clothing on this photo. Elizabeth, his wife, is also a fine example of the sculptor who created the tomb. The detail in her headdress, in my opinion, is absolutely amazing, as the details of the beading that are so small but so clearly carved, so very easy to see, and does look like it was very intricate work. I cannot begin to even imagine how many hours of work would have gone into creating this entire tomb, but it was certainly worth every minute. Sadly, I have no idea who the artist is, as although I did do quite a bit of research, I wasn't able to find out, so if anyone listening knows, do please let me know. To end, I thought I would include a little bit of information about Sir Ralph and his wife, who are actually at rest within this tomb, and also a little about their son. The details are taken from several ancestry sites, and they suggest that Sir Ralph Grey was born in Chillingham in Northumberland in around September of 1406, and his parents were said to be Thomas Gray and Lady Alice Neville. Elizabeth was said to be born Elizabeth Fitzhugh in Ravensworth in North Yorkshire in around 1410. Her parents were said to be Henry and Elizabeth Fitzhugh. Although no date was given of their marriage, Elizabeth and Ralph married, and the couple had at least one son together, who was also called Ralph. Sir Ralph died in around March of 1443, and Elizabeth died in around 1445. And although I have taken these details from recognised sites, it is still possible that they are not 100% accurate, hence why I always say around or about when discussing dates. And I have also found many suggestions of Elizabeth's birth, some of which would have meant she had not even been born when Sir Ralph died, so it does make it quite hard to be fully sure of their heritage. Their son Ralph, born in around 1432, would go on to marry Jacquetta Stainlaw, and they had at least one child together called Thomas. Ralph and Jacquetta did not remain in the Chillingham area, as both died while living in the Doncaster area. And Ralph Grey Jr. was apparently connected to the War of the Roses, but that is way too complicated for me to get into, so I won't even attempt to explain it, as I would no doubt confuse everyone, including myself. But I do hope that you have found this short little video interesting, and that it has maybe even made you interested in visiting the church and the churchyard and seeing the tomb for yourself, or even made you interested in visiting the haunted castle of Chillingham. I do feel that they are well worth a visit. I do thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again very soon.